Hey guys, so I've been getting a lot of questions asking how I get my skin textures, so I thought I'd make a video explaining how I do that. Also, I'm quite excited. This video is sponsored by Skillshare, which makes it a lot easier for me to keep the channel going and make regular content. So the thing about skin texture is it's less about the actual texture and more about getting your form and volume right. In this video, I'm going to explain how I draw skin. Like, I'll explain the tools that I use and the techniques that I use, but I think I'm first going to explain the foundation before you get into all of that, because without good form and volume, everything will just look flat anyway, and that's going to defeat the point. The way you capture form and volume is by using light and shadow. So you really want to try and work from either a reference image or a model that is lit with dramatic light. Light coming from directly in front tends to it makes it very difficult to try and capture skin texture if the subject's looking flat. If there's a definite source of light coming from an angle, it makes it a lot easier to have shadows and a highlight. And with that, you're just making your life easier to then try and capture skin textures. And if you want to go into details, then it's a lot easier to do that. Most of the time, skin is actually really smooth. So if you can get your shadows and your highlights right, your drawing's going to look great. And then from that base point, you can then start going into details. And that's where it really starts getting fun. I'm going to go into explaining all those details. But first, let me talk about Skillshare. I'm really glad to be working with Skillshare because I actually think it's a platform that can help a lot of artists. If you don't know, Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of courses that cover dozens of creative and entrepreneurial skills. You often find like little hidden gems from doing classes or learning from other creatives. For me, Yuko Shimizu's class on ink drawing was full of quite a couple new ideas that I hadn't considered. Even though it's a different medium, it still got me excited to try some new things. It's pretty affordable, with an annual subscription being less than $10 a month. And because Skillshare are sponsoring this video, they're offering a free 2-month trial to anyone who clicks the link in my description below. Okay, so back to the details. First, I lay a foundation using cotton wool. I work with very soft graphite, and I find that I can push cotton wool around and manipulate the graphite quite easily like this. You can capture your shadows and your highlights quite easily with cotton wool. It gives you a really smooth finish, and if you're using soft graphite like an 8B, then you don't have to press very hard at all, and this allows you to pull highlights out of it if you need to, and also to get some really nice rich shadows with it. And the cotton wool also has a really nice way of blending the shadows to midtones and midtones to highlights. Once you've captured your shadows and your highlights and you've got this nice foundation with a very smooth finish, you can then start adding in the details. So you can add little creases or moles or pimples or anything that blemishes in the skin that kind of just give it a little bit of character. It's still important to observe the rule of having or knowing where your light source is and knowing where your shadows are going to fall. So if you're trying to draw a little mole to add a little bit of texture, then make sure that your light or your highlight on the mole is still coming from the same light source, and then again with the shadow on the opposite side. Then also with creases in the skin, it's the opposite way around. So the crease will have its shadow and the highlight will be on the opposite side from where the light source is coming. You'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. I think with a little bit of studying, you start to notice things like the diamond-shaped pattern in the skin underneath someone's eye, or the kind of random textures of someone's forehead. Okay, so now that we're adding a bunch of details, there's a huge trap to be careful of. It's so easy to do too much. I catch myself so often getting lost and having so much fun doing all these like textures and details, and before I know it, my drawing's looking flat again. So there really is a fine line to try and walk, and I really feel that with most textures, less is more. If you can just kind of suggest the detail, a lot of the time your mind fills in the rest. There's a cool little trick where it's quite hard to explain, but if you have a mid-tone going into a highlight and there's a transition, so quite often it's almost like a stark transition if the point of light is a sharp point of light. There's this at the transition, sorry, I'm explaining this badly, but at the transition, there's an opportunity to add details. So you can add some textures at that point of transition, or a transition from shadows to midtones, where that fade happens. If you add details there, often you'll find that it feels like those details continue into the shadow or continue into the midtone. And that's a really cool way to add a minimal amount of detail and get quite a lot out of it. Like your mind kind of tricks you into thinking that both sides are more detailed than what they really are. And you also then you don't get this feeling of flatness when you look at the work from a distance. So yeah, I really want to stress, use the details in caution, or try and be cautious with how often you use the detail. But yeah, I hope this helps. I hope you guys are able to understand. It's hard for me to explain this kind of stuff, but yeah, I hope this is helpful. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you want to see more videos about how I draw and the techniques that I use, please subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Let me know in the comments what you'd like me to talk about next, or if there's something I kind of missed. Also, if you've got advice for me or for any other artists, I think everyone kind of really learns a lot from the comments as well. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.